have to win that one game with that. And of course, the Druid coming out for Kansas, they think this is probably the better matchup going up against Warlock, maybe trying to ride that momentum into the last game as well.
So living roots in the opening hand, this is really a decision you have for this card. And it's a great card with a lot of flexibility. I'm not quite sure it's found its home yet, though. These two 1/1s, they do eventually get in quite a bit of damage if they go unchecked. So I definitely can see Kansas letting that rip on turn 1 here. Two 1/1s on turn 1's it's a pretty massive deal for 1 mana.
Yeah, and players also, when they were theory crafting early on with Living Roots and Darnassus Aspirant, saying, well, if we Living Roots turn 1 into Darnassus Aspirant, we're sort of protecting it from proactive things. A lot of players will throw down a 3/2 now on turn 1 with a coin to proactively play against the Darnassus Aspirant, but the Living Roots eliminates that option from the repertoire of a lot of players. And so I've heard some players put the Living Roots in their deck for that, but you said it's a versatile card.
Yeah, so Darkbomb going to answer this Aspirant. Kansas kind of back to square one. So now Living Roots has pulled quite a bit of weight in this one. It will be 4 points of damage for 1 mana.
There you go.
With still minions sticking around. I mean, this is the power of a card like this. Is again, if these 1/1s do go unchecked, they deliver quite a punch. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up over time. It's a small tax. And so Waterloo, they're now the ones faced with the difficult decision. Do you Dark Bomb this Aspirant? Do you coin out your Void Caller? Or do you just wait and life tap and hope for the Mountain Giant? They're going to go with denying it. Kansas, they fist pump. They know that means these seeds are dealing more damage.
I don't even know if that was a fist pump. I don't really know what that was. But they looked more positive than negative, so I guess they're happy.
Well, when you get 6 points of damage with Living Roots, you got to be happy.
Yeah, maybe they were...
That's 3 arcane shots.
Maybe they were RPing as trees, flailing their arms in the air. I don't even know what these trees would do.
Well, they're going to go upstairs for 2 points of damage is what they're going to do. And still the 1/1s loom, so Waterloo, they have to consider how much this damage is adding up.
Yeah, a little bit disappointing for Kansas. They're not really able to do much. They realize that Keeper, throwing that out there as a body against a handlock deck, especially Demon Handlock, there's so many key targets that you need to silence, Void Caller being one of them.
Well, I don't really know if this is necessarily a 100% silence target. I think Drew the Claw, at this point, he's protecting the 1/1s. I mean, they've gotten so much value. It's clear
just
Waterloo...
all in on the treants.
It's clear Waterloo can't take care of them. I mean, maybe it's charge even. I like the taunt up still. I think they got the news last turn that Hellfire wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think Waterloo would have coined Hellfire. It just was such a good board for it. So this Drew the Claw, I mean, they've also seen 2 Dark Bombs too. So outside of Siphon Soul, which we haven't seen in these builds in a long time, really wasn't a way to take care of it.
And one of the trees is about to lose his buddy. They got in 8 points of damage, though, and this little guy is going to get in that 9th.
He's coming back for revenge. He wants the 9th point of damage. He's actually sticking around, by the way. Wrath is going to take care of this Void Caller as well. So
yeah.
Potential for 10 points of damage out of those Living Roots.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Kansas, not the best of hands. They do have Ancient of War, though. That's great.
Yeah.
They might be able to draw into something like a Savage Roar, which really activates those Force Natures that they've drawn in their hand early on.
The big one there is that it's a 5/5 and you're getting extra cards from it. So this is actually almost exactly the kind of game plan that Kansas wanted to fight, which is a pretty big attrition war leading into them having a minor initiative. So the Ancient of War really fortifies that board position and, again, gives you options to follow up on it. And so at that point, that's where the Druid usually has the most favorable trades of the game.
Yep. And a lot of times, if the Druid can hold on to board control long enough with cards like Ancient of Lore and draw into Force Nature Savage Roar, they can control the health of the Warlock player. I mean, we can see that, yeah, they've done a lot of damage with Treants, but now they're starting to draw into combo pieces. You really have to sort of control. You realize that Waterloo with this turn is most likely going to tap and maybe play an Ancient Watcher. That's a really weak turn. You can say, well, maybe they have some Molten Giants in their hand that they just can't play that because they're not low enough health.
Yeah, how Kansas interprets that hand from Waterloo is really the most interesting spot about it. And so Ancient Lore, I mean, no question about this one. This one's definitely coming out. And 2 not even bad pickups. I mean, I think those are fantastic pickups, give you extra ways to push damage. I mean, they have 10 damage burst available out of hand right now.
Yeah, 10 damage burst from hand plus 8 damage just sitting on the board. That's exactly 18. If Waterloo had just taken like a Molten Giant, or sorry, a Mountain Giant turn, that turn, then they would have been dead.
Yep, and so, wow, with 2 innervates now, 12 plus 5? Oh, it's the anti-heal bot. Okay,
Anti-heal bot.
I completely forgot about the heal freight. I was like, wait a minute!
If they were still at 18, that would have been lethal with double innervate.
They need more space on the board too, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Blocking the spot. But
that
either way,
stupid 1-1 tree is blocking the way for the 2-2s.
Either way, the Treant actually is providing them some very valuable trades in this spot as well. I mean, the swipe plus the hero power plus the 1-1 Treant, it's going to leave the 5-5 on the board alone. So once again, they're going to find themselves in a position where I think they can make pretty darn good use of this board.
And at this situation, you have to think, well, do we utilize these innervates and maybe double innervate out a Druid of the Claw?
Well, I actually like innervating a Force Nature here. It pushes 4 extra damage, and it gives you the option to play the Druid of the Claw and the Force Nature next turn. So that puts a lot of pressure on the health total there. They're going to go with the defensive play on Druid of the Claw, and it still works out in their benefit. They have 12 bursts from hand. They got 5 sitting on the board. This is a pretty tempting Hellfire turn from Waterloo if they have it, and it happens to be exactly what they have in their hand, and there's really no other options for them. They can't let these minions continue to hit them over and over again.
But if they Hellfire, they don't play anything else. They don't have enough mana. They go down to 4 mana. They go down to 16 health, which is not enough to play one of those Molten Giants. They tap, all of a sudden they only have 2 mana left. They still can't play anything. And then they're at 16 health, and they're still leaving an Ancient of Lore on the board because they can't get through both of those. So still a little bit dangerous. Coming into turn 9, you see those 2 cards that have been sitting in their hand for 3-4 turns now. Got to be scared. But what other option do you have?
I don't see the right pieces getting them out of this one, TJ.
I don't at all.
I think they're going to have to life tap. But what do you find?
They can life tap in Mountain Giant and start hoping to maybe fight back for the board. Hope that Kansas doesn't have the damage they need.
Defender of Argus, it's not going to be good enough. Yep, I mean, they got their sights set on the Hellfire, but that's going to set them too low. Force of Nature, Innervate, Force of Nature. It's not often that we see this combo being the one that ends it.
They still don't have enough mana. They used an Innervate last turn.
Oh, you're right.
They decided to Innervate out the Druid of the Claw instead of just hero powering down the anti-kill bot.
Now, that being said, Innervating out that Druid of the Claw did force Waterloo into a position like this, so it's no telling what they would have done had they just been facing a single threat instead. You know, maybe the Doom Guard comes out of hand in that position.
That could have been a possibility.
But, you know, I'm just getting a little too excited here. 9 mana. I thought they were rolling into 10 mana, but it's just going to be Harvest Golem instead. He says, put me in, coach.
Put me in, coach.
And so for Kansas now, they do have that decision. Do they push this major damage? Because obviously Waterloo's been struggling to get threats on the board. So Molten Giant's, I think, a pretty likely read from Kansas at this point. I think they can deal with 1 Molten Giant. Can they deal with 2? Waterloo celebrates over the Harvest Golem. I think they're celebrating over no Force of Nature Savage Roar is really what they're celebrating over. Kansas, no attack from them. I think this is a smart play.
There's always that small point of tension where you get to the point as a handlock player where you're saying, I can't play around combo anymore. I just have to go for it, hope they don't have it. And Waterloo, their chances of taking the series 3-1 are still alive, but looking pretty slim because Kansas does have that double Force of Nature turn unlocked next turn, which is quite a bit of damage from hand. What can they do this turn to prevent it?
Well, you know, the play that I see outright was Molten Giant and Defender of Argus. Maybe Molten Giant into Shadow Flame now. It still leaves 2 damage behind, though. And they have to find a way to talk through this. I mean, Molten Giant Defender of Argus is about the only thing that's gonna help them survive. But even then, you're looking at 9, 10, 11 points of damage. You're going to be set to 1?
It blocks the most damage, though.
Yep, I think I got to go for it, honestly.
And they're not dead. They would have been dead if they went for the Molten Giant Shadow Flame because they would have been sitting at 12 health.
Does that change anything? It certainly lets your 5-2 trade in. But they're going to go through the math here and make sure that they're not missing anything.
No, there's still not enough damage here. But, I mean, I guess they can't really confidently say there was 1 mana float at 12 health, so with 1 Molten Giant played, you can pretty much be confident that you can start pushing through damage.
It was coupled with the Defender of Argus as well. So if there's a time where you're going to start pushing damage, this is likely it. Now, I can see that Harvest Golem trading into that Defender of Argus, maybe making sure a second Defender of Argus doesn't gum up these works a little bit, but they're even considering using Force Nature to try to keep this Ancient Allure around. And once again, though, I think this is a pretty excellent play because Waterloo has kind of given you the sign that maybe they don't have the resources to take care of a 5-2. And when that's the case, you know, these are all very sensitive reads they're going to have to make. It looks like they're going to favor hanging on to Force Nature in this spot. And even pushing damage at this point, so putting a lot of pressure on Waterloo once again on the back foot. They're going to have to figure out how to make use of what they have right now because they do not have an effective way to clear the board. This may just have to be Mal'Ganis and hope.
Yeah, Waterloo has to be confused. Kansas has been holding on to 3 cards for that long, and they didn't use a single one except the swipe that came off the top.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not dead, but we know it's not full combo. So they have to guess what it is.
I mean, there's a chance it's Big Game Hunter. No, it can't be Big Game Hunter. They just saw Giant.
Yeah, they saw Giant.
Maybe it's...
Keyzon Mystic? No, because that would have been played.
Force of Nature, I think, is definitely on the radar. But what the other one is definitely is in question. Oh,
15 health. They have 14 damage.
Well, 13. But the Defender Vargas is going to be able to take out the 2-1.
Yeah, so they're still off because that's still 12 damage.
Wrath actually cannot be played unless they play Force Nature this turn either.
Wow.
What a weird pan out it's been for Kansas.
But how does Waterloo fight back now? I mean, I guess they do have Mal'Ganis, which is another way to block damage. Even though it's not a taunt, they can just play it and all of a sudden it blocks 7 more damage.
Yeah, I think that Kansas is kind of thinking through their options this turn. You know, what happens if they push damage right now? What happens if they wait for the damage? You know, really the big thing that they're having to calculate is, can they play around another taunt minion? I think the answer is yes. So it looks like they've concluded that as well. Just 1 point of damage, and then hope that maybe the mystery 12 is something Waterloo isn't going to spot. So in this spot, if they don't play Mal'Ganis, they are actually dead.
That is true.
It looks like they know that they have to play this Mal'Ganis, though.
Yeah, tap is not an option, so they can't try and look further for something like a Sunfear Protector, so they're going to have to start putting on the damage, too. Mal'Ganis is actually a pretty big threat. Wild Growth, I mean, they're getting closer. They can start cycling, getting through, trying to find that Savage Roar.
2 extra cards are going to get picked up this turn in combination with that Wrath. Now, I imagine Sansa Big Game Hunter draw. It's Wrath and Force Nature take care of this Mal'Ganis.
Savage Combatant can do it as well.
I wonder if they'd Wrath first. If they'd Wrath first, they actually would have been able to innervate out the Savage Combatant.
Whoa.
But now they pick up Force of Nature. Waterloo is going to have to find a taunt or a heal. Actually, heal won't even do it because they'll be at 15, and that innervate is going to allow them to deal at 15 points of damage with hero power. They have to have a taunt.
Sunfear Protector or bust this next turn to allow them to Mountain Giant and
How about a Sludge Belcher?
That's good too.
This is a card that we actually have not seen in these builds for quite a long time. It's been rotated out in favor of having the Void Caller package. They have Sludge Belcher though, and it's going to save them for another turn.
That is nuts. Yeah, that is going to be enough even with the innervate. Because that 5 health is so awkward for Force of Natures to get through. Yeah. You have to throw in the hero power, which wastes damage. Emperor Thorsan could be a pretty big deal. You might be able to fit some more stuff in there, especially with the innervate. With the innervate, they can make a Force of Nature, Savage Roar, Savage Combatant, innervate hero power turn.
It's a lot of stuff going on.
Which is, what, 16 damage? Is that what it ends up being?
14, 15, 16, 17 total damage.
17 total damage.
Now, what it does allow you to do is push the damage through in kind of an awkward way. So Waterloo going to have to be careful about how they actually dedicate their resources here. I think you got to go with the Savage Combatant. I think you just need extra pressure on board. But then what are the implications of playing that into a Shadow Flame? Like, maybe they can't play it this turn. Kansas has been, their last few turns have been extremely difficult. And it hasn't been from a too many decisions standpoint. It's from a not enough and the decisions being super impactful for the next couple of turns. Such a tense game.
It's so hard to think when to push damage with a Savage Roar against a Handlock, or sorry, with a Force of Nature. Just a Force of Nature. Like, where is the Savage Roar? Are they the bottom 2 cards in your deck? Can you afford to wait until the Warlock can possibly draw into more taunts?
This is how desperate they are for damage, by the way. They're digging into the Sludge Belcher, using 3 of their own life to put a single damage on it. Waterloo, once again, does not draw a way to effectively defend themselves, but they're the ones with the lead right now.
I mean, are they thinking about maybe even digging with their Mortal Coil on their own Dread Infernal after they trade it in to try and desperately get to a taunt?
It certainly is something you need to consider at this point, because Kansas is clearly working to try to push just barely enough damage. So what's the value between having a 6-1 and having a random card from your deck at this point? That's really
I think I'd take the random card, but if we look at it, Kansas actually doesn't have lethal. They have 17 damage. There's going to be 18 total health that they have to get through. 12 health naturally, plus 4 from the Sludge Belcher and 2 from the Slime. That's a total of 18.
Wow, and you can see they even pulled the Mortal Coil from their hand.
I think they got to go for it. I mean, all of a sudden, if you pick up a...
They're going for Dr. Boom instead. They want a Mortal Coil to Boom Bots. So Waterloo, I mean, they're the ones with the advantage right now. No way to taunt up, but Kansas has to deliver lethal this turn or they are dropping this series 3-1.
What can they even pick up?
Keep
Azure Drake.
It's not enough.
I think 1 damage off.
I think they need to Keeper of the Grove, TJ.
So Force of Nature, Savage Roar, and then Savage Combatant with Innervate Hero Power. All
That's
of a sudden,
9 points of damage. Because you got to use 2 of the tokens to chew through the Sludge Belcher.
yeah, and at the end, the Savage Combatant doesn't do anything because you're still, it's increments of 4, 4, and 5. So, I mean, they're going to think about it, but I don't think they're going to come to the same conclusion that we are, that they're going to be a little bit off here.
I mean, maybe
Waterloo's
you got to go
so
for like
damage.
Azure Drake into Miracle Wrath into Miracle Swipe. Would that be enough?
That's bold.
Well,
Have they used both swipes? They used one on the
yeah, you're right. They
Ancient
have.
Watcher earlier, and one on the Molten Giant, I believe, when they top decked it.
Yep, they absolutely have. And so Kansas gonna go for what they can.
Waterloo thinks they're dead. I mean, unless we did this math wrong.
Well, I think at this point they have not considered the implications of this, and so now they're starting to realize it. But you can see the tension building. The math is not going to be enough. Kansas State University falls just short. University of Kansas, apologies.
3 damage short.
Wow. You got to wonder if that 3 damage would have been there. And you can see Waterloo celebrate, and rightfully so. A very, very tough series and well-earned. Wow, what a game.
Yeah, you could tell. So happy about that one. Taking that series 3-1. We talked about it earlier, getting that 1-0 start at the beginning of the season.
There's even the greeting from Jiraxis.
GG coming out, and they showing the Murloc. It's good to see good sportsmanship here, too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kansas after this one. I think those guys are great sports.